So I listened to The Female Persuasion by Meg Wolitzer on audiobook, and boy, did I get an earful. This is the story of Greer Kadetsky, who is a shy, self-absorbed bibliophile with an inclination for benevolent behavior. The only child of her negligent parents, we watch Greer's relationship with her neighbor Corey blossom to her time in college when she discovers that she too can be an activist. While in college, Greer befriends Z, a staunch activist, since her pacifier came out of her mouth, starting with her adolescent advocacy for animal rights to her more personal advocacy to be gender non-conforming. Z has a tremendous influence on Greer, whose experience with an on-campus predator propels her forward to stand for justice and to stand for what is right. And when feminist icon Faith Frank visits their college in the midst of their protest about what's happening on campus, Faith and Greer share a moment that is the catalyst for the rest of the story and sees these characters through their postgraduate years. Greer is inspired to make an impact in the world for women, and she wants to be the kind of person like Faith who has what it takes to affect such an impact. But is that who she truly is? While the story is about Greer and Faith on the surface, I think the branching out relationships that these women have is so much more illuminating of the main theme of this book. This idea of sisterhood, of women helping women, sounds really good, and it might be the right thing to say, but how much of it actually happens in the day-to-day interactions between women? Do women support other women unconditionally or only when it's convenient? And if it infringes on the picture we're painting of ourselves, are we willing to acknowledge our subtle and not so subtle sabotages of each other? In the name of sisterhood, of course. The other piece of wisdom that I found delightful in this book is our quest for people who give us permission to be ourselves, and how role models are celebrated not just because of popularity or fame, but because they ignite the possibility of our true selves coming to the light. I also enjoyed the portrayal of men who have had an impact on Faith and Greer in this book. Corey, Greer's high school sweetheart, experiences a family tragedy that completely breaks him open and shows us who he truly is, and his arc is so full and so layered. Then there are the men in Faith's life, which you'll learn about later in the book, but it's also very revealing and very satisfying, like Emmett, an investor and a womanizer who is like a window into the male psyche, in which I realized some men just aren't even paying attention to anything at all. It's like they've been given this narrow frame with which to see the entire world, and everyone else must adjust themselves in order to fit inside the frame, but every once in a while something off to the side is just too commanding to not take notice of. And those are the strong ones, the ones who make the frame move for them. And I probably learned the most from his character because there was just such an honesty and simplicity about him that even though I disliked what he was doing, I was amazed by how sometimes sheer audacity can just yield success. Overall, I think my biggest takeaway is that sometimes the cost for fighting for what is good is participating in what is not so good. And that if the sisterhood we preach isn't selfish, then the one we practice shouldn't be either. I'm surprised at how much I enjoyed this book, and not just because of what I liked about it, but also because of what I didn't like. At first, I'll admit, I was a bit leery about the book being stereotypical and only portraying feminism from the perspective of liberal white women. And it does do this on every single page. But at certain turns, the book seems to acknowledge the blind spots of white feminism, and it condemns it. But it reads almost like a post-it note reminder. Like, don't forget women of color. I do understand that this is Greer's story though, and I think that Wolitzer tells it well. But I also think that if you're gonna paint this backdrop of sisterhood and talk about feminist icons and feminist literature, it simply isn't enough to just allude to nuanced perspectives or dissenting opinions in the form of Twitter hashtags or drop in a couple ancillary characters who don't actually challenge this blind spot in the main characters, but just sort of speak their piece briefly for good measure. It's dismissive and it makes it sound like trivial complaints instead of legitimate concerns. Now, I've been reading a lot of books lately that explore facets of feminism, and I'm hungry for more. What are some of your favorite fiction reads that deal with feminism and sisterhood? Share in the comments down below, and if you've read The Female Persuasion, also share your thoughts in the comments because I would love to keep talking about this book with you all. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remember to read or be read, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.